The cassette revival, whether real or imaginary, has reignited the interest in cassette culture. So in this video I will talk about Russian cassette culture. The state-owned recording firm Melodia, yes, it was called a firm, selected content that was compatible with communist ideology and signed contracts with Soviet artists as well as with Western labels. Music was sold mostly on vinyl records, and in fact Melodia was officially called a gramophone record firm and was owned by Ministry of Culture of the Soviet Union. The very lenient copyright law combined with chronic shortage of popular music released on either vinyl records or cassettes effectively sanctioned mass copying and sharing of music. And all this copying required blank cassettes. Production of Soviet cassettes started in the late 1960s, and at first they were made of American parts. Several years later the production was completely localized, but flashing on the sides or the uneven alignment of the record protect notch or the shape of the imprint of the cassette, which wasn't matching the paper label, gave away their proletarian upbringing. By the middle of 1980s, Soviet cassettes looked just the same as they did 20 years ago, and only came in Type 1 60-minute flavor. Foreign-made cassettes, albeit more expensive, were valued much higher for their mechanical quality, for better magnetic formulation, for longer play, and of course for visual appeal. A 10-pack of 90-minute Japanese tapes would cost more than half of an average monthly salary. I begged my mother to buy these Sony EFs for me, and she did. And later, when I started working myself, I bought a 10-pack of TDK Type 2 tapes, and these 20 cassettes, and then some sustained my listening habits through the 1990s. The culture of tape dubbing stemmed not only from inability of the Soviet state to keep up with the music taste of its citizens, but also was fueled by censorship. Many music acts, domestic and Western, were deemed offensive or detrimental to communist ideology and thus were prohibited.
Brezhnev took Afghanistan and Begin took Beirut. Galtieri took the Union Jack.
Just like censorship of printed books brought to life samizdat, books published abroad, smuggled into the Soviet Union and retyped at home on a typewriter, censorship of musical acts inevitably resulted in shadow distribution of foreign music, of recording from foreign radio stations, and recordings of Soviet underground performances. These unauthorized performances were called kvartirnik, from the word kvartira, which means apartment.
Но я пишу стихи всю ночь напролет, знаю наперед, что их никто не прочтет. Зачем я жду рассвета? Рассвет не придет.
Коммунисты мальчишку поймали, потащили его в КГБ. Ты откройся, кто дал тебе книгу «Руководство в подпольной борьбе».
А берегами гонит туман, запахи крошева. В ночь отругали ропотом мои, ждали хорошего.
By the end of 1980s, the stranglehold of the communist ideology weakened, while the stronger copyright laws have not yet been enacted, and this caused an explosion of private businesses dubbing and selling tapes. Still, whether one recorded a cassette of a friend's vinyl record or bought it in a street booth, the packaging was lacking. At the very best, it would be a J-card printed on a laser printer or maybe even dot matrix printer, black and white. These are some J-cards that I made myself in the early 1990s. Then something truly unimaginable for any country with robust copyright laws happened. A magazine for women called Rabotnitsa started printing J-cards for popular music acts in full color with a short description and a bio on the other side. All you had to do is cut the card out of the magazine, fold it, and put it in the cassette box. Now your tape looked every bit professional as a commercially produced one. And immediately the magazine became popular with men and its circulation skyrocketed. And here I have several cassettes with J-cards cut out of that magazine. This says Mashina Vremeni, which means time machine. It's a Russian band. It's one of the oldest Russian rock bands. It was founded in 1969 and it's still active. Here is a nice flap that tells basic information about the band. And on the back side of the J-card is extended information and snippets from an interview with the band. In the early 1980s, Mashina Vremeni was one of the very few Soviet rock bands allowed to book large venues like concert halls and sports arenas. By using allegorical puns instead of brazenly criticizing the regime, the band managed to avoid direct confrontation with the authorities, walking a thin line between staying true to the underground scene and being completely absorbed by the state music system. In 2013, the band's frontman, Andrei Makarevich, released an album of socially charged musical vignettes and small poems. The album title, Chronicle of Current Events, is an allusion to a samizdat periodical that ran from 1968 to 1983, when its last editor got arrested. In an ironic twist of events, Makarevich and his band, who made it through Soviet years, fell out of favor of the current regime after he criticized Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014 and later gave concerts in Ukraine. This says Scorpions in Russian transliteration. It's a German rock band. In the mid-1980s they were banned for violence in their lyrics, but by the end of the decade the band toured the Soviet Union and took part in grandiose Moscow Peace Festival. In 1990s the Scorpions recorded a powerful ballad, Wind of Change, that commented on the social and political changes that were occurring in Europe. The song became sort of an official anthem of the democratic changes in the Eastern Bloc, and the band developed strong Russian fan base and still returns to perform. This says Eurythmics in Russian transliteration, and this is a rather unbecoming photo of Annie Lennox. Eurythmics was never banned in the Soviet Union, and for a reason. Their songs are often politically charged and carry strong social message. Annie Lennox and her band partner Dave Stewart are known for their public support of Amnesty International, Greenpeace, and other social and ecological initiatives. And finally, a German duo that have never touched political events with a 10-foot pole, Modern Talking. Their syrupy songs are strictly about love, but love that is neither too spiritual nor too carnal, a sort of relationship that may occur between mannequins. And I must admit, I used to have 6 full albums of these guys on 3 90-minute cassettes. In the late 1980s, not a single Russian dance party would happen without playing their stuff. They remain immensely popular among Russian Gen Xers. In 1998, they came to St. Petersburg with a show, and after the duo's breakup in 2003, the lead singer, Thomas Anders, regularly comes to Russia with shows. The orgy of copyright lawlessness ended in the 1990s when the monopoly of Melodia was shattered by private recording companies, which started making their own deals, producing records on professional equipment. I haven't bought many tapes during that time because I switched to CDs. Here are just a few tapes that I have. This is Madonna, and this is a Russian band, Guest from the Future. And you can see the marks over here, like this and like this. They indicate that this is not a counterfeit product. This is a fully licensed product with, licenses paid to their copyright owners. It seemed that the era of underground sharing of books and music was over, but as the Russian state keeps tightening the control over radio, television, print and internet, flooding state-controlled media with vacuous talk shows and third-rate music, kvartirniks, the private concerts, became popular again. It is easy to share information over the internet, but China has shown that building a gated national network is possible. And Russia recently tested a capability to completely disconnect the Russian portion of the internet. If the digital Iron Curtain is erected, offline sharing will return.
Мой корабль давно сел на мель, новым шрамом гордится висок, расплылся мир, как акварель, а мечты вода и время